Like the Real Housewives of Max Verstappen up in here.
Checo's checked out.
Joe Manu is off the track. That steak is cooked.
A lot is at stake for Steak F1.
Man, even the broadcast couldn't handle that stat.
My heart almost was screaming like, how can anybody be a Lewis Hamilton fan?
No.
Not on my 2024 bingo card.
Yeah, you're gonna have to create a new one now.
Hey guys, and welcome back to Lights Out Latest. My name is Marina, and I'm here with Tristan, Steven, and Jason. And today we're gonna do something that we probably shouldn't do yet because it's kind of jinxing it, but that's fine. We're gonna compare Max Verstappen to Sebastian Vettel, talk about some of both of their most controversial moments, their best moments. Before we get into that, as always, this week's headlines. First of all, I want to talk about the GPDA, the Grand Prix Driver Association's statement on Instagram.
Gotta love it.
What'd y'all think?
That's awesome. I just want to know what the FIA president was just thinking when he saw this come on his desk. He was like, "Oh,
Literally.
I don't know if he would be that surprised. Like, they've been saying all the same things forever, like publicly. I can't imagine what's been said behind closed doors.
Yeah.
So then for them to go public about it feels very much like, I'm the FIA president. I hear about this. I'm like, of course they did.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's funny, though, because it was very much like they kept reiterating FIA president, FIA president. Like, it was very much an attack on him, in my opinion.
they said they didn't like his tone.
His tone, his
like, straight up, they just don't
like
him.
I thought it was interesting. I also think it's, like, I'd like to give myself and Christina a little pat on the back because me and her were talking about it, and we were saying, like, well, what could this Instagram be for? Because, like, we both, like, they didn't just create an Instagram for funsies. Like, they're not all PR people. Like, they're drivers.
Yeah.
And so we were thinking about it, and they were like, if they don't, like, they're going to use this platform to get fans on their side against the FIA and against people like F1 management and stuff like that. That's
Public voice.
Which is exactly what they did. That's what we said they were going to do, and that's exactly what they did.
How many PR jobs do you think that just created?
Several. Thank you so much.
Isn't like it very easy though to convince the general population to be against the management of the sport? I feel like it's pretty easy.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
you could do it with one play in an NFL game, or one steward decision in an F1 race, and get everybody like behind them. But I think right now the FIA is in a tough spot. We talked about it last week. I mean, they're kind of like, they're punishing Max, but then they don't. And then it's like there's these calls that are like way overboard. Like the 20-second penalty was so uncalled for. But then also you don't punish things that should be. And then also like the fines that they did for the false start. But like that should have definitely been a racing penalty. Like why would you give a fine for that?
Right.
And they gave it to George and Lando, but they didn't give it to everybody else because like they're following the leader. But like,
Yeah. It's a bit
I don't
weird.
know. I don't like it.
I'm just curious to see where this is gonna go. I mean, I don't think it's really gonna go anywhere, for being honest. But
Really, I think it'd be the opposite. I think now we're going to start to see change.
yeah,
It's just going to put more pressure on the FIA.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be true.
I think maybe, now is kind of stronger. I think 2025 we start seeing change.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
I think importantly, though, like, it highlights kind of like the stupidity of some of the decisions made by the FIA in recent years. Like they said, the jewelry stuff. They said, all of like the underwear thing. Like, do you remember Seb walking through the paddock? Was that Coda with underwear on the outside of his racing suit?
I think
like,
that came from, like, the FIA said, oh, you need to wear long johns underwear because it might be more fireproof. Even though we're already wearing a fireproof and Nomex suit. And all the drivers are like, that's stupid. They can't police that. So then Vettel wore the underwear on the outside of his racing suit.
Or like Lewis with his jewelry.
I was gonna say that.
Oh, yeah, he
Like,
showed up to the
which-
press conference with, like, 4 watches, all of his necklaces, all the bracelets he had. It was hilarious.
Max with, and the thing is, too, it just creates.
And
every
Max
time
held
they
his
do
own
it-
press conference.
That's what I'm saying. Every time they do it, they get more and more bad press because, like you said, like Max held his own. He boycotted the FIA, held his own press conference outside of the main press conference with all the media, which is exactly what the media wanted. Like the stories were being written, yes, about some of the things that he said, but mostly about the fact that he boycotted the FIA and decided to go around them so that he could say whatever he wanted. Do I think that swearing at someone or calling someone like, again, I always say this, pardon my French, but like calling someone an asshole or something like that, like that's wrong. You shouldn't be able to do that in a press conference. You should be fined for that, or community service, or whatever you want to call it. And again, no consistency
Like,
there.
you can't look George in his eyes and call him an asshole.
No.
Right. But if you say the conditions were fucking crazy, that's not hurting anybody.
Right.
And I get trying to limit swearing for like a family-friendly environment, but like, come on.
Yeah.
Just don't show on the F1 Kids broadcast.
Yeah.
Well, that's exactly what the F1 Kids broadcast should be for.
Should be
you know?
for, exactly.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, I guess, you think about it, it's like, at the end of the day, F1 would be nothing without the drivers, and I'm sure, he realizes that. So it's like...
Yeah.
It's just like, I've never remembered this level of there was always controversy with regulators of any sport.
Yeah.
But even thinking back to like 2017, 18, 19, we had John Taught, the president of FIA. If there was any complaints, it'd be like, all right, the stewarding was a little bad this weekend.
Yeah.
Right? But then now we're at the level where it's like, oh, the president of FIA is bad. And keep in mind, this is just, he doesn't just manage F1, he manages all of racing that the FIA worries about. By extension, that's IndyCar. By association, that's NASCAR.
Yeah.
By, WRC. They're also in partnership with WEC, even though they don't directly control it.
Yeah.
They also have tons of all the junior categories they manage too.
Absolutely.
There's Formula E.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Nick DeVries is extremely worried about Mohammed Ben Sulayem messing up Formula E.
Well,
You see, that's the key is we demote him from president and have him be FIA director of Formula E. Now people watch Formula E for all the drama.
Yeah. I think that raises a good point, too,
God.
because I know you talked about this before we started the podcast. We were mentioning it.
Yeah.
Who chose him?
We still don't know.
What gave him the right to be the president of the FIA? Because I could think of so many other people.
I know, the
like,
FIA
if we
board
had a general
votes,
public
but, like,
vote
how?
on who we think should be president of the FIA, I guarantee you the results would be either Jenson Button or Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah.
There's no other, like, neutral party.
Well, yeah, but do those guys want that role?
I think Seb would take it. I don't know if Jensen would want it.
I would want
but
Ross Brawn.
I feel like maybe anything that would get Jenson Button away from Danica Patrick, he'd be okay with.
Ain't that
Danica Patrick is now doing commercials, which I can't fathom. And please tell me you guys saw the petition that went online.
I did not.
There is a
Did not, no.
petition that thousands of fans have signed to get Danica Patrick off of Sky Sports.
Oh my god.
I thought she was
that's
kicked
funny.
off
Dude.
after saying she believed in lizard people, but apparently not. Like, she went on a podcast recently, like, totally saying that she believed in, like, lizard people.
Danica
That was not
Patrick.
too long ago. It was like 6
Yeah,
months ago or something.
yeah, and I thought that got her kicked off air. So, to my surprise,
No.
she was not.
Apparently,
No.
Danica Patrick is cancel proof.
Guess so. And she managed to keep a top job in NASCAR for like 6 years and didn't even produce a top 5. So, I
Can
mean,
I say
Yeah.
something bad?
Mm.
If this is too bad, it might not even get aired. But she's not cancel proof. She's a woman.
Oh.
Well,
she
you
is
see,
a female racer, one of few. And not to say that's a bad thing necessarily, but like we have so few female racers.
It's true.
That in
It's true.
in a world where diversity is becoming more and more important, and that's not me saying that I don't think diversity is important. I think the best person should get the job.
Yep.
But
Yep.
given that she has the racing experience to back up what she's saying,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
everybody
she's one of few
agrees.
options that we can work, like that they can work with, and so that's why she's kind of cancel proof, because she is a female racer, one of like what, 5?
Yeah.
Of ones that actually raced and had success. Like, everybody can
Yeah.
agree, like, if she was stuck in IndyCar, she would have been a contender.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
she was
yeah, well,
winning.
She won an
Yeah.
IndyCar race.
She won an IndyCar race.
She
Yeah,
she
she's
was good. And but the money's in NASCAR, so she went to NASCAR. And unfortunately, she is the like you said, most notable female
Racer.
driver.
Her and maybe Jamie Chadwick.
Yeah, but
Like,
Chadwick
those are
is
the number 2, and then everybody
barely
else is
on the edge of getting an IndyCar seat. Any other woman IndyCar driver hasn't come close to what Danica has achieved
That's
as
what
a
I'm saying.
racing
So-
driver.
Yeah.
So
Fans may
you're not
like
wrong in
her.
saying that. Is
Yeah.
that we want to promote women drivers into the sport.
Yeah, and I think it's
And
important to
she's-
also say sorry.
So sad she's this example
yeah,
for
Yeah,
the sport.
that's what I was saying. I think it's
Yeah.
important to have female role models. Like, as someone who wants to be in like PR and F1. I love seeing other females in the sport and stuff, whether that be in driving and engineering and like, dude, Hannah Schmitz is like, she's my favorite person. Like, if for those people who don't know her, like, she is head of strategy at Red Bull. She's such a G. I love her. And like seeing her and like people yell at her like in the paddock or like when they see her or like when they do like the pit lane stuff at the beginning of the weekend, they'll be like, "Oh my God, come to Ferrari!" like she is a notable woman in the sport, and so is Danica Patrick. And I wish she was the role model that everybody wants her to be, because she could be so good, but she just puts her foot in her mouth so many times. And the amount of memes I've seen of this woman speaking and Jenson Button staring off into the distance like he doesn't care at all. And Jenson Button is so loved that I think people take it a little bit out of context, but it's like, it kind of seems like, dude, what she's saying is so stupid that he can't even like pretend to care.
Like, I wish Susie Wolf could be Susie Wolf could be as public facing. Like, she is director of F1 Academy and she is involved heavily.
Yeah.
She can't do more like you said, front facing like PR and like broadcast stuff because she's so involved.
She's never done it would like be asking Zach Brown to become a pundit. Like, way too busy to do that.
He should though.
He would be.
I think both of them.
All I hear out of Zach Brown's mouth is like
stupidity.
Corporate. Corporate speak. Like, whenever they ask something controversial, like, we think we're looking into success for our partners here.
Yeah.
Which is hence why he could sell so many sponsorships.
Yeah.
But he would make a terrible commentator because of that. Who would make a great commentator is Otmar Safnar.
Oh, God,
He left Alpine. Have you listened to any of the podcasts he's done?
Yes.
He's on multiple podcasts explaining of how bad it was when he left Aston Martin and Alpine.
Yes.
And was super honest about why he left.
Yeah.
It was awesome. The High Performance Podcast, go listen to it.
Do you know why I said everything that Zach Brown says is stupidity?
Tell me.
Because McLaren said recently that Lando Norris's championship was never their main priority, which blows my mind.
Yeah, it's true.
Because they were like, besides this one win for like, if Max had not won in Brazil, which was pure talent, not luck, like some would say. They were on for like, they could have I don't want to say easily, but they could have. They were on to take a fight to Max.
Yeah.
For them to say it was never a priority for them is actually insane.
Maybe at the start of the year, but then after that Miami win, you start to question it.
Yeah. That's just a thing that you say to your investors to make them feel better.
The expectation
Why
management
would you say
101.
that to the media?
Like, he apologized at the start of last year, or was it 2022, of how bad the car was.
Yeah.
Last year, it started of
2023.
Yeah,
he wrote a letter of like, I'm so sorry, the car is so bad. This is what nobody wants.
I watched
and then they
live,
finished on the podium.
I watched live in Bahrain. Lando Norris pit like 6 times for the first race. It was literally just a practice session for them. They just kept coming in, changing tires, doing stuff, and like running some laps. They finished like, I want to say they finished like 18th and 19th in Bahrain 2023. And midway through the season, there they were. And I think the beginning of the season, we were definitely like, where is McLaren? Like, why aren't they as good as they were at the end of last season?
Yeah.
Now and they're arguably the fastest team in F1.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they're throwing it away.
Yep.
Hey, Ferrari's right there. He's right there, Ferrari.
I want Ferrari to win the championship because I don't think McLaren deserve it. I don't think they deserve it.
McLaren.
I mean, I can see what
They've
you're
only
coming
had a
from.
couple of bad races. Like, it's been since the summer break.
That's what it's going to cost them.
One race, one single race where McLaren made the right call besides Miami.
Zandvoort, they were very good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what?
With both cars?
Wow. If we're going to play that game.
There's not a single race where I literally, not even Miami, where I can think of a single race where McLaren made the right decision strategy-wise with both cars. They are becoming the Ferrari of Formula One.
I mean, is that such a bad thing?
For you.
I think that's such an aggressive take because, I mean, you go back to the past 8 races, both cars have been in the top 5.
Their last
every
one,
single
too,
race.
was Hungary with
But they could have,
Piastri
like, there were
Norris.
races where they finished, like, actually, that's a lie.
And their only 1-2
That
before
doesn't
that
include
was
Brazil?
2021.
'Cause they were both outside the top 5 in Brazil.
Well, yeah, that's not including Brazil.
I will
Okay.
say.
I was
mean,
gonna say, well, because okay, go for it.
I was just gonna say we're having this discussion where Red Bull is a one-driver team.
Okay, but regardless, they have made pretty decent strategy decisions given what they've been given from Sergio Perez.
No, you're right. You're right.
Like, I don't see strategy as a detriment to Perez's race very often. It happens. It's happened a couple times this year.
Yeah.
But it's very rare.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if their strategy is a detriment, it's because he crashed and like broke front wing and had to pit super early.
No, you're right.
So it's
You're right.
I don't think it's a stretch. I don't think it's a stretch to say that McLaren is becoming the Ferrari of the last couple years.
Yeah.
The Ferrari that like gives up race wins on poor strategy.
I would give it till next year. If like the end of next year, we'll see. Like if they do the same thing next year, then I'll be like, yeah, they're Ferrari. But right now, it's hard for me to say that.
Okay, fair enough. Let's move on to Audi. Gabriel Bortoleto. Was this announced? I'm so excited. We talked about a little bit this last week because this is unconfirmed. I am so happy that he was announced as an F1 driver. However, I would like to bring up the fact that the way they announced it was the most horrible way. Like, they could not have done a worse job. I don't know who works in PR at Audi, but they need to get their stuff together. They did it after Brazil. Like, they could have so easily done it at the Brazilian Grand Prix or before. He was there.
Yeah.
People were already suspicious. Who were already saying it. He was still there on McLaren's in a McLaren capacity as like a driver for them.
Yeah.
They also did it when all of Brazil was asleep.
Definitely weird
crazy
timing,
stuff.
but
Like the timing
I
wise,
wonder-
like they posted like I don't know, it was like I think for us it was like 5 or 6 a.m., which would have been like 7 a.m. in Brazil. Like 90% of people were sleeping.
I wonder.
People that care at least.
Well,
I could
what
always-
decisions were happening behind the scenes? Like,
Yeah.
what were they maybe the PR team was rearing to go, and they need just a green light from
Yeah.
management to be like, yes, we want to hire.
I could
Who
see-
knows? It was probably a decision from Germany.
Yeah.
Like,
I
they
bet
probably were like, hey,
Right.
let's make sure this is done in the right way, and this is the right driver.
They're probably
I had
just doing
so
it for
many
like
meetings.
legal reasons.
So
And maybe they did try to get it done
That's-
before Brazil, but because of the decision tree that goes into it, they couldn't. I don't know.
right,
Yeah.
but even if that's the case, and they did it after Brazil, they still should have done it like midday in Europe.
Yeah, the effect is still not great. Well, wasn't it midday in Europe? Because 7 a.m. Brazil is what time in Germany? That's
I don't
definitely
know,
midday
but they
in
could
Europe.
have waited like 2 or 3 hours, then like
10
9 or 10 a.m. in Brazil, so that
Europe.
people could enjoy it. Like most people were
That's
posting, it was
11
like
a.m.
first thing you see in the morning is like
Europe.
an alert from F1 that Gabriel Bortoleto. Like I would have loved to have that air as breaking news because like Sky Sports for example, they do like sports all day long on Sky Sports, right? The same thing in other countries with sports channels. Like we have ESPN, they just play sports all day long, right? Or they
Yeah.
talk about it all day long. So I would have loved to have the opportunity to see that as breaking news on a channel in Brazil because I
No,
think that
for
would have made
sure.
a lot of people happy.
Yeah, I think there's just some sort of red tape there. There's got to be something. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. But for those who don't know, going back to actually Gabriel Bortoleto, which I love him so much. I have a cool story I'll say after this, but he is Brazilian and he's currently leading the F2 championship. So I think that definitely played a big role because last year he won F3, jumped to F2, winning the F2 championship first year. He's like the new Oscar Piastri.
If he's that good for Audi, I mean,
There you
shoot.
go, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's just won everything like first year,
Yeah.
which is always, I think, a good sign. Is a sign that he can adapt. Is probably something that Audi really needed or really looked for when they were looking for their
Well,
driver.
Do you think you could comfortably say now that he's already the #1 driver for Audi, or is that too crazy?
I don't think so.
Okay.
The reason being is I think because Nico Hülkenberg had such a good year, and such a good comeback
Yeah.
that I still think with the experience that he has, he's #1. And I don't think anybody would fault Audi for that being their #1 driver. So
Yeah. No, that's fair.
I think that's fine. My little story with Gabriel Bortoleto is that I went to Bahrain, in 2023. He won that race. The sprint race in Bahrain in 2023 for F3, he won it.
Nice.
I arrived at the track right when he was winning the race because my parents didn't care. So, boo-hoo to them because they didn't care enough to be there early enough to watch F3, F2. They're like, it's too hot. Whatever. I was getting there. I got into the stadium section right as, or the podium section right as they were playing, like he was going up on the podium. And I was like, this is so cool, like Brazilian winning F3. It was awesome. Fast forward 2 days, and we were in the airport going back to Dubai. And I saw him in the airport with his F3 trophy. And the only reason I didn't go take a picture was because he was on the phone. I didn't want to interrupt him. Then we flew back to Dubai with his parents. His parents were on our flight, and he went to Italy to see his girlfriend.
Nice.
I found all this
cool.
out because I DM'd him from the plane. It was like, hey, I saw you in the airport. Congrats on your win. Also from Brazil, like everything. And he responded, was like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like, you should have said hi. I love meeting fans or whatever. It was very sweet.
Oh,
Very nice.
That's awesome.
So he's a cool guy. Anyways, speaking of cool guys, Franco Colapinto.
Yeah.
What do we think his future's looking like? Because not Toto Wolff, well,
Christian
James
Horner?
Vowles seems to think he's a shoo-in for the grid next year, and I don't really know where right now.
Yeah, there's just no seats. If it wasn't that Audi seat, there's nowhere else unless magically Stroll decides to leave, which I don't think is going to happen.
Yeah,
No, I
that
don't
would be
think so.
crazy.
Well, there's all these rumors that Horner's trying to get him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the master plan rumor is Perez is out, Lawson's in the Red Bull seat, or potentially Colapinto's in the Red Bull seat, which would be insane. You put Lawson in the Red Bull seat. Colapinto would be in V-Carb next to Tsunoda, and Tsunoda cries about his career because he has just been passed up way too many times.
Yeah.
He's just right on the cusp, you know?
Yeah.
He's right there, but I just feel like he's just
Or maybe
not
we're
quite
looking.
good enough.
Maybe it'll be Max Tsunoda and then Lawson Colapinto.
That would be wild.
And
That would be
V-Carb.
interesting. That would be a good one. I just think that Yuki put a lot of eggs in the Honda basket, and Honda's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They no longer have any sway there.
Or now this is crazy. What if Honda convinces Lance Stroll to retire? He's had a good career.
Yuki goes
And Yuki
to,
goes to Aston Martin when Honda becomes their engine supplier in 26.
Dang.
I don't know. I wouldn't be
That
surprised.
would be a Honda move.
So I wouldn't be
Man.
surprised if it happens for 26, but I think 25 he's locked down at Red Bull.
Oh
at V-Carb.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Here's the thing that's interesting to me is we talked last week about the deal that was supposedly on the table, paddock rumor, from Red Bull to Williams. But I'm starting to think that deal could actually be for Carlos Sainz and not for Franco Colapinto.
It could.
Because
You never
20
know.
million for Franco, because that was the number that was started around last week, seems like a lot.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
Right?
The only reason Red Bull, though, the argument for Colapinto is they have no juniors ready to step up. They have zero. They have nobody. They had
Red Bull?
Lawson. I mean, they had
Yes, they
Drogovic,
do.
right? But Drogovic is.
Drogovic was never a Red Bull junior.
Red
Then-
Bull.
and
They
they
have
dropped.
Isaac Hadjar.
They dropped Enzo
They dropped
Fittipaldi.
Enzo. But they still have Isaac Hadjar. They still have Pepe Marti, who, by the way, is a terrible driver. If he ever makes it to F1, I'd be so shocked.
Oh,
I've seen him crash more times than he's finished races this year, so I could say that with reason. They have Arvid Lindblad, who is moving up to F2. He's really good. So
Yeah, but they have nobody ready, is what I'm trying to say. Like, they have nobody to call up right now into the V-Carb.
yeah,
Well, but
Sainz was
they
a Red
also
Bull
have
junior.
their reputation. I mean, why do we have to live in this world where you have to cultivate something from like 14 years old until it gets in the car? No, just give me a guy. It's called
Yeah.
scalping. I don't care. You want to come
Yeah.
race for Red Bull, kid? Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
that's
there
what
you
they
go.
did with. That's what they did with Perez.
Boom.
I was
there
going
you
to
go.
say.
Well, look how well that worked out for them.
Yeah.
For a couple
Worked for like a
It's a bad
year,
idea.
and that was it.
I really do think that the best move for all involved would be to have Carlos Sainz. I mean, again, this is assuming Carlos Sainz is willing to be a number 2 driver, because that's what it's going to take.
Yeah.
If he's willing to be number 2 to Max Verstappen, I think that's pretty much a done deal. Do you remember the rumor last August that Carlos had a clause in his contract with he signed the contract with Williams, but he had a clause that said if Red Bull or Mercedes came calling, he had an out.
Yeah. Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it would not shock me to hear this late in the season, okay, Carlos Sainz is now going to Red Bull, Franco Colapinto stays at Williams.
Yeah. I think that would be the best move.
Yeah.
For both sides, yeah. I mean,
go for it.
I was just going to say, especially with McLaren the way they are, even though they are making mistakes, I think you still have to look at them for 25 and be like, we have to do something, you know?
Yeah, because the ball and chain needs to go.
Yeah.
The ball and
It's
chain.
not working.
You can only have that for so long.
Yeah. The other thing is, assuming Franco gets a seat on the grid, we're looking at 8 drivers. I said this in the group chat. 8 drivers born in the 2000s for next year. It'd be Yuki, Oscar, Franco, Liam, Ollie, Jack Doohan, Kimi Antonelli, and Gabriel Bortoleto. That is not including the Brazilian rumor, which I forgot to put on the sheet, that is that the mechanics at Aston Martin are pressuring Lawrence and Lance Stroll into Lance retiring and bringing in Felipe Drugovich, which
That
would
would be
mean
wild.
9 drivers born into the 2000s.
Yeah.
And a crap ton of rookies and a crap ton of crashes. It'd be a very entertaining season.
It sounds good to me. I mean, shoot.
It'd be very entertaining.
Then swearing would really become a thing.
Oh, God. Yeah. The other option, which I thought was interesting, was I saw rumors that Alpine were looking at Franco Colapinto. However, they have a driver,
Yeah.
Yep.
so I'm not quite sure where that plays in.
Always gotta keep the options open.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, he's been so solid already. I mean, I'm sure, everyone's going to want at least a shot at
Oh
him.
yeah.
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 All right. Last little bit of news. Jason brought this up, and I'd seen it, but I haven't really looked into it enough, so we'll give you the chance to talk about it. Rotating races in Europe.
Yeah, this has always been a talking point a little bit. And then recently asked about it, I think the CEO of Formula One, Stefano Domenicali, mentioned it, is that we already have so many races on the calendar, like we have 24.
Yeah.
And there's too many tracks that want an F1 race and not enough days in a calendar year where we could stack all of them together. So the proposed plan moving forward, once we're making these future schedules, is that there'd be a rotation. So like if we'd have a race in Germany, you wouldn't have Hockenheim and Nürburgring. You would have one year's Hockenheim, next year's Nürburgring. Next year's back Hockenheim, next year Nürburgring.
I like that.
Or even in Italy, they will not rotate Monza. But that's a concept, is they'll rotate. Or maybe they'll go 1 year Barcelona and then next year France at Paul Ricard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these circuits that, and now this is a better way for circuits that can't pay as much money. Like Monaco can't pay a lot of money. Monza can't pay a lot of money. Silverstone struggles sometimes with money too.
Yep.
Where you could say, hey, we could do a rotational deal for less of a cost and rotate in another track that will pay a lot of money. So there would be like a rotation of schedule. So there's still like a global presence, and we could have a predictable but changing schedule each year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only argument I'd make with that is that then you don't. I mean, I think it's an argument kind of in favor for a fan's perspective, is that you really don't know who's going to be best where.
Mm-hmm.
Because
I think
2
that's not
years
even an argument
is a
anymore.
Big
Because
change.
there's
like, you could have big car changes in 2 years, in terms of like, okay, Ferrari used to be better at high speed corners, now they're better at medium speed, from 1 year to another.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
just there's so many races in
Especially
the
from
calendar.
2 years.
It probably does. If the calendar was 12 races, you might talk about that, where it depends on what team's strengths and weaknesses are. If you book all the tight and twisty circuits and Red
Yeah.
Bull's really good at downforce, they're like, oh, Red Bull's going to win the championship.
Yeah.
But I think we just have too many races where that won't be an issue. Like, it's probably a concern. They probably consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make sure they're like off, so that whichever, like, say it's France and probably Paul Ricard and probably not Monza, probably Imola would be the trading off one. Monza would be like a staple.
Yeah.
It'd be like, I mean, we were talking about this. We mentioned it before, like the 3 races that would have to stick, that would not be able to like leave. I think we said, do we come to the conclusion it was Spa,
Spa,
Monza, Monaco.
Yeah, Silverstone.
Silverstone is maybe.
Yeah.
It's like the number 4.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think you'd have to be very careful to not lose audiences that way.
for sure. For sure. That's the other thing too. I mean, I'm sure you'd have like some sort of government thing in there as well.
Oh, most
Yeah.
certainly.
Yeah.
And also figure out when you can start doing this, because a lot of contracts are made for so far in advance. Like there's I'm pretty sure Bahrain has a contract till like 2032 or something. So it'd be tough. And also, okay, so many races in Europe, but Europe is a continent, not a country.
Right.
We
Yep.
have how many races in the Middle East, for example? And we do
Yeah.
testing. Like, could we alternate where we do testing? Could we start testing at Paul Ricard, for example?
Yeah.
To give them an opportunity to host something? And again, if this is a track where there's issues with being able to pay for things, then maybe that's an option of
Yeah.
like alternating where we do testing every year.
Yeah.
So
That's happened too, which is interesting. Now we have testing in Bahrain. Wait, was in Spain for a while.
right, but we have testing in Bahrain, but our first race is in Australia. Make it make sense.
Yeah. It made most sense when we had Bahrain as the first race.
Right, that made sense. But
Did we have Bahrain as first race this year?
yes, we did.
Okay.
And then Australia.
Yeah.
F1, make it make sense. You can't.
Impossible.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty accurate though. Like, make anything that's happened this year make sense, because we've been yapping about it all year and it hasn't made much sense. It's been very
Yeah.
controversial.
When was the last time F1 made sense?
Back in my day.
Back in my day.
The 60s?
Speaking of controversial,
Mm.
these two drivers have had a lot of controversial moments, and people don't like to remember it, right? People, like, in theory, like, you think of Max Verstappen right now. What's his, like, legacy right now?
Controversial over drivers.
And what is Sebastian Vettel's, like, legacy? What is his, like, what do people think about when they think of Sebastian Vettel right now? And you'd say there's no way you can compare the two.
Yeah.
You forget that when Vettel was winning, he was Max Verstappen. Like, they're so similar when they were in their prime.
Yeah.
When Vettel was arguably around Max's age, like, they were so similar. So we can go into we'll start with their most controversial moments. Start with Seb's controversial moments, and we can kind of compare with Max's.
Sounds good.
Steven, you have 08 in Italy.
Yeah, so
sheet.
yeah, 08 in Italy was a fascinating one, I feel like. Now, this is the first win for Toro Rosso. First one, well, latest one would have been Pierre Gasly, AlphaTauri.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was a fascinating race, I feel like, for him. This was, I believe, the youngest. Yeah, this was, I believe, Sebastian Vettel's first win.
Yes.
was
Yeah.
his
The
first
very
time, yeah.
Oh, I
first.
said
yeah.
controversial.
Toro
and then
Rosso's first
and then I
win.
told
Was
you
his
best
first
races.
pole?
The first
too?
win
Hello.
for any Red Bull racing enterprise.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was crazy, too, because this was a Ferrari engine team.
Yeah.
Toro Rosso was back in the
The
day.
only Ferrari win that, only Ferrari powered win that wasn't Ferrari
Yeah.
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Monza.
Yeah, and you had let's see, I hope you don't bash these names. Heikki Kovalainen.
Heikki
Yep,
Kovalainen.
cool.
There you go.
McLaren in second, and you had Robert Kubica in the Sauber and BMW,
Robert.
which is
Robert.
also, and you also had a very very young Lewis Hamilton in this race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
One
rookie
time world champion. Oh, not yet one time world champion.
season. No.
Yeah.
Runner up. Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
who he had?
I did say controversial, and then I said best, and this is one of his best races, right?
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. So my apologies.
It's all
This is one of his best races. Anyways, continue.
Yeah,
what you were
but
saying.
yeah, so then yeah, basically this was a good race for him. This is a rain out race for sure.
Yeah.
You had drivers going everywhere. You had
Both very talented in the way.
yeah. Felipe Massa was going off, and I believe he hit Lewis Hamilton at one point.
Yeah.
And then yeah, you had Fernando Alonso also in a Ferrari in this race, which I find mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean basically, you had this guy, Sebastian Vettel, this young 21-year-old guy, come out in the rain. No one's expecting him to win, especially in a Toro Rosso of all things.
I mean,
He got pole. He had a good race. He stuck it out, and he won the race in a Toro Rosso for the first time.
yeah.
It was
Awesome.
crazy.
I mean, if that's what you think, like, you think the same thing, kind of like, Max in 2016. Like, no one is expecting this kid to win. Everyone is saying this kid, he's too young to be an F1, youngest ever driver. He's not even 18 yet. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
In 2015, and then 2016 rolls around. They're talking even more because now he's promoted to the big teams. Halfway through the year, it's like, man, he's coming to this big team. First race in the Red Bull, and Lewis and Nico just like take each other out right in front of him.
Yeah.
And then he just controls, like, no one expected him to win. I think at that point, like, anyone watching that live, which wasn't me at the time, but anybody watching it live, you're thinking, okay, well, it's Danny Ricks to lose.
Yeah.
And then Max, like, has this stellar performance. It's like, first race with Red Bull. It's like, you're finally at a big team, and then you, like, that's insane. And like you were saying also, like, with the wet, like, Max in 2016, like, that same year, like, I will never unsee that. For people, like,
he was basically sideways.
It was
He's ridiculous.
Like, all the way on the side. And
he had
just
almost
snapped it
identical
back.
slide in 2014 in the practice session he did.
Yeah.
Because he like drifted around the corner. You could see GP like look at the camera, like the video feed, like like he literally pulled one of those. You gotta look up Max 2014 drifting in Brazil, and it shows his now race engineer like mouth agape at watching Max drift the 2014 Toro Rosso around the corner.
I will say one thing in comparison to Vettel and Max. Vettel was able to win in a Toro Rosso. Max was not.
Yeah.
Major marks.
Yeah.
Major marks for
Major
Vettel there.
marks
Yeah.
there.
I didn't even realize that Max wasn't a Toro Rosso, to be honest.
Well,
Yeah, for a couple
Do you know
years.
who his
for
teammate
a year
was?
and a half,
Who was his teammate?
Carlos Sainz.
Was
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We're going full circle.
Right, because at the time, who was in the Red Bull? Was that Seb and Danny?
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
Daniel
2014.
Kvyat.
No, that's
Oh, wait.
2014.
It's 15.
2015, it was Danny and Danny.
Yeah.
Oh, it was.
Kvyat.
Because he subbed out with Danny in 2016. Well, not Daniel, not Danny. Well.
Okay.
Daniel and
I was
Danny.
gonna say
Kvyat.
Russian Danny
Kvyat and Ricardo.
and Ricardo.
Right, because Daniel Kvyat, did Daniel Kvyat get promoted in favor, like, for Max to come in 2015?
Wait, who's that? Who are you saying got promoted?
Kvyat?
Did Kvyat fill the spot at Red Bull so that Max Verstappen could fill the spot at Toro Rosso?
Let me get up to date on my Kvyat knowledge.
Oh,
Right, because
Kvyat.
we did Max and Seb research, not
yeah,
Danny
yeah,
Kvyat.
he had to
Right?
be.
That's what happened, right? Because he was driving the Toro Rosso. Then he gets
That's
promoted to
mind-blowing.
Red Bull to fill the spot of Seb leaving.
Yeah, he was in there in 2014. Yes.
Seb went to Ferrari.
Yes.
So Kvyat spent 1 year at Toro Rosso, got promoted to the big team,
Yeah.
then demoted again, and stayed there for a while until 2020.
Yeah.
Right. Because Max came in, was great in the Toro Rosso, putting in performances that, besides Sebastian Vettel, could not be done in a Toro Rosso. And now we can say Pierre Gasly. And maybe even a Yuki Daniel throwing in there somewhere.
Maybe.
Somewhat,
Maybe. If we're
maybe.
feeling special.
Yeah. And then he comes in. This is my favorite part about Max. Dude, it's the best part. Is that he comes in to F1 in 2015, does a great job in 2015, early 2016, switches with Daniel Kvyat in 2016, and then proceeds to date his girlfriend in 2020.
He chose his life, literally.
Like, the
Stole his
funniest part
job,
is Daniel
stole his
Kvyat going
wife.
on a podcast and saying, like,
Crazy.
oh, I was going to sign with Ferrari and chose not to stay at Red Bull, and then the next year I got demoted. I was like...
Yeah, and it's true because he was out in 2018. Do you know what he did? He was a Ferrari reserve driver.
Yeah.
So the contacts with Ferrari were there. They were there.
Yeah. So
He was this close. Imagine Kvyat at Ferrari
Max
instead of
ruined his
Vettel.
career.
Wow.
Yeah.
Max
Max
literally-
Verstappen single-handedly ruined Daniel Kvyat's
Max
career.
literally did the Terminator. I need your boots, your clothes, your motorcycle.
Because
Seb was the one that called him that, wasn't it?
this goes
Seb, what did Seb call Daniel Kvyat?
what did?
the torpedo.
The torpedo.
torpedo.
That's
yeah.
Russia,
Oh my
2016.
Yeah.
But here's
Torpedoes.
the big timeline. We could have had Robert Kubica instead of Kimi Räikkönen at Ferrari. So the grand
That's
scheme
flashback.
was you would have Fernando Alonso. You know, Kubica just got off of defending against Fernando for him to win the championship, whatever.
Yeah.
And Kubica's still in F1, and we roll up to 2013. Kubica is apparently about to sign this Ferrari contract. He's spoken about this. And the lineup was going to be, in 2014, Fernando Alonso and Robert Kubica. What ends up happening is Kubica has his massive rally accident, majorly injures his right arm and hand, still can't completely move it to this day.
Wow.
And, of course, he can't be a driver. So now it's Ferrari scramble for a driver. They call up Kimi Räikkönen, and Kimi Räikkönen becomes Bottas.
Which is crazy because Kimi essentially retired from the sport.
Yeah.
He revived his career pretty much the same as Nico. Like, it's a kind of like a Nico Hülkenberg-esque career because, well, I guess Nico Hülkenberg has a Kimi Räikkönen-esque career because it was like, although Nico never won anything.
So it's no surprise. My point being, it's no surprise that Ferrari offered him because Kimi was only ever meant to be a stopgap.
Yeah.
Kimi was literally like plan B after Kubica injured himself.
Yep.
Imagine Kvyat, Kimi Räikkönen.
So Kvyat was approached and was like, "Hey, we want you instead of Kimi Räikkönen." And he never followed up. He said, "I'm going with Red Bull."
Yep.
Which was the biggest mistake he ever made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because he got... That's the problem is, like, Red Bull will go through these spans where, like, they have too many drivers to fill too little seats. And then they will go through these, which is crazy to say because they have 4 seats, essentially have 4 seats in F1.
Yep.
But then they'll go through these spans where they have no one to fill their spots.
That's where we're at right
That's
now.
where we're at right now. We're thinking of, like, okay, past... Because there was a point in time where...
I mean, that's why Perez is there.
8 to 10 drivers on the grid were linked with Red Bull.
At some point.
At some point. Like, back when Danny Rick was at McLaren, you had Seb... You had Danny Rick, you had Carlos Sainz, you had Max, you had Checo, Yuki. Who was in that RB seat?
Loss.
No, wasn't Lawson.
Kvyat? No. 2021, no. 2021 was Kvyat there? De Vries.
Dick DeFries.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So that's already 5,
That's
6, 7.
That's half the grid.
And
Like,
we're
almost-
still... Oh, Gasly? We count Gasly?
Pierre Gasly.
So that's
I'm saying
8.
that's 8. So, like...
You have a full
Carlos
grid
Sainz?
of Red Bull
I already
drivers.
started Carlos
All
Sainz.
right. So we
So, like,
have
you have
8
at
drivers.
least 8 drivers that were at some point associated Red Bull on the grid.
Yep.
People that you could call up and, like, up until Carlos, like, arguably, at that time, Carlos getting called back up to Red Bull would have been a promotion.
Yeah.
Which is what it is now. It's still, like, if he went back to Red Bull, it'd still be a promotion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Even if he'd be a number 2 driver, I would argue it's a promotion.
No,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's the
certainly.
best. Going from the
Yeah.
probably what the third,
One of the
fourth
worst.
best team to
A team that may not even have enough parts to have 2 cars
Yes.
in Vegas
Yes.
next week.
Yes.
Or 2 weeks from now.
I don't think anybody's arguing that Red Bull is the better team than Williams.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
It's like the
the
argument
question is, would you
of-
rather be, like, the second string QB at a great school or a number 1 QB at a meh
Exactly.
school?
Would you rather have the base model of a Mercedes or the top of a line of a Camry?
The Camry's going to give you so much more.
So that's what I guess maybe
about
Carlos
Marciano.
Sainz and maybe a part of Williams has to decide. But
Yeah.
that's kind of off topic. Anyways,
Basically, what I'm hearing is Red Bull has a monopoly on F1.
they do. They do. Red
That's
Bull
what
has
Zach Brown says.
invested millions into their junior driver programs throughout the years, and it's worked out for them.
Yeah.
In parts, but they've also, like I said, they've had so many seats. They've had so many drivers with not enough seats that they lose out on drivers.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure Carlos Sainz felt like he was getting skimped out of a seat when Max Verstappen was just all of a sudden promoted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
And it's like, well, now what do I do? Because I'm not going to the main team because you're not going to get rid of Danny Rick.
Literally.
And Max is doing well. He won his first race of the team, so I'm like fucked.
Hey,
I'm stuck.
that's what's
That's why he
happening with
left.
Tsunoda. I'm pretty soon. I
Yeah.
bet.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't. If Lance Stroll is still in that seat at the end of next year, I would make a huge argument for Yuki going to Aston
Yeah. I think he should.
because Honda's gonna push super hard for that. That could be a condition.
Or Yuki Tsunoda opens a restaurant in Japan.
Yeah, he retires that way.
There are one of two ways this is going to go.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, let's move to some actually controversial moments from the two, because there are some controversial moments from Seb that people don't think about because, like I said, we've gotten so far past that, like, controversial Seb, like, early 2010s moments.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jason, who had 2010 Turkey?
That was me. So that was him. There's still very fierce title battle between multiple drivers: Fernando Alonso, Sebastian Vettel, and his teammate Mark Webber.
Yeah.
And we get to 2010 Turkey, and the Red Bull Racing is already like, guys, come on, it's your teammate. Don't fight. And they end up crashing into each other and take them both out of the race. That was like the first spark in their rivalry. Vettel and Webber and Red Bull had a toxic rivalry by the end of their time there. Like, Mark is still salty, and Vettel at the time just did not care. He was there to win, not to be friends.
Yeah.
And that was the starting point of the controversy when Vettel and Mark came together in Turkey and took each other out of the race.
Yeah.
It was a very similar crash to Spain 2016 between Nico and Lewis. Same feel, same season. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very similar. Like, I don't feel like the problem is Max has outshined so many of his teammates that there's no comparison. Like, Max has never. I mean,
Danny Rick
see...
would have gone the same way. Like, remember Baku 2018?
Yeah.
Max and Danny
literally
have been
just ran
fighting
right into each other.
forever to be the top dog of that team.
Yeah.
And that was like the breaking
That's why
point.
Danny left.
Yeah, that was the breaking point where Danny is like, well, based on Red Bull's handling the situation, I don't think I'm ever going to be number one here. I'm leaving.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you come from a team that's not a Red Bull driver program.
Yeah. Well, wait, what? Did Danny Rick?
Danny wasn't a Red Bull driver, was he?
I thought
Oh,
he was.
forever. Yes. He came in.
Wait,
well,
Danny Rick was a junior driver?
I thought
Yes.
he was, yeah.
yeah, he came into sport under Red Bull
Yeah.
backing with HRT, Hispania Racing Team,
Yeah.
in 2011 or 12. Yeah, in 2012.
Okay.
And then Hispania was about to go bankrupt, and he got him to Toro Rosso because they didn't have the seats before that.
Yeah.
And then after a few years at Toro Rosso, he gets promoted to big team in 2014, and he wipes the floor with Vettel. Totally demolishes it. Red Bull's only wins came from him that season in 2014. Horrible Red Bull car, and still got the wins done.
Yeah.
So you would think after all that Daniel would
Be
be
the
a
number
number one feeling driver, but then you have Max come out of nowhere, get promoted mid-season, and then compete with him every year. And then Ricardo's left like, hey, I've been here longer. I've already proved myself. What else do I need to do? And they're still kind of erring towards Max because he's a little bit younger, and they think he has a higher ceiling.
Yeah.
Well, honestly,
Well,
were they
arguably
right?
They were right.
Hey,
Yeah.
yo.
Even if
Danny was
he
saying,
hadn't obliterated his career the way he did by leaving and going to Renault and then going to McLaren, then going back to the Red Bull
Max
family.
would have still beat him.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to Daniel Ricciardo, and I love Danny Rick as like a person, and I don't think he's a bad driver. He's a pretty good driver. Max would have wiped the floor with him.
Yeah.
You know, the haters said that he couldn't do it, and shout out to the haters because they're right.
Oh my gosh.
Shout out to the haters.
I
Shout
mean,
out to the haters.
where do we think Red Bull would be if it was Danny Rick and Max Verstappen instead of Checo?
It
They
would
would
have been
be
the
winning
same
the
thing.
championship this
Really?
Same thing. I don't know how much. Well, who knows? Maybe
I don't think
he would
there'd
have
be-
been more in tune.
I don't know. This is going to be a hot take.
Uh-oh.
I don't know if Max would have won the championship in 2021 if it was Max and Daniel. My point being, I don't think Bottas is a strong enough driver to take wins off Lewis, but I do
But
think
he
Danny
has
Rick
before.
is a strong enough driver to take points off Max.
But he has
Yeah.
before
Right.
Bottas.
Not
Like,
in a significant way.
he Bottas led the
would give up wins.
championship.
We're just talking about how Daniel Ricciardo was he left because he didn't want to be number 2 to Max.
Yeah.
So are you saying that in 2021, Max in ultimate form, he would have given up a win like Oscar Piastri did for Max Verstappen? Because my answer is no.
I don't think so, no.
But Valtteri Bottas would have done it for Lewis, and he did.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. Daniel would be more stubborn. Daniel would
he
be
would have
the
taken
guy.
more points off Max, and he wouldn't have defended in Abu Dhabi 2021 the way
Daniel,
he
did.
no, Daniel would defend, sure, but Daniel would be the guy like you tell him, "Hey, move out of the way," and he's gonna be like, "Sorry, I can't hear you. What was that?" And
I was
he's just
gonna
gonna
say,
keep
I
repeating.
can't-
The radio's
Yeah.
messing up.
I just can't picture Danny Rick being stubborn like that.
He would not move out of the way. He
Not-
wants to win.
But that's the thing. You're thinking of Danny Rick 2023. This is Danny Rick like
He's still fighting for
when
his life
he's
a
still
little bit.
fighting. Yeah, he's still fighting. He's so
2016,
demoralized
17,
now.
18, 19, he stepped into that Renault and he did things that Renault should have never
Never
been
done.
able to do. Like he
That
ended
car.
Hulkenberg's career. Then,
Yeah.
back then. Back
Think
then.
of the amount of driver, like the amount of like.
Like Hulkenberg's a
Seb-
great driver. He ended his career because he outperformed him by so much
Did
that
Seb
Renault
end-
said, "We don't want Hulkenberg. We'd rather have Ocon," which is a crazy poll because Ocon wasn't even in the sport. He was a Mercedes reserve driver. He had a stint at Force India, wasn't good enough. Went as a Mercedes reserve. Well, actually, he was killed by Stroll. He was a Mercedes reserve driver, and after all that,
That's a
Ricardo
crazy poll.
beat Hulkenberg so bad that Renault said, "We need the Mercedes reserve driver. This is bad."
Yeah,
Like,
that's crazy.
That
This is
wild.
what I'm trying to
Has-
say.
Has
Yeah.
Seb killed anybody's career? Did he kill Kimmy's career?
Maybe you could
A
make
bit.
that argument.
Could you make the argument that
Raikkonen?
Sebastian Vettel
could make
killed
that
Kimi
argument.
Raikkonen's career?
Raikkonen was gonna
'Cause
stay as long
wiped
as he
the
wanted.
floor with Kimi.
Yeah.
He was gonna stay as long as he wanted. He was the ideal number 2 driver.
He was Valtteri Bottas before Valtteri Bottas.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I don't think it was killed. It was like Ricardo and Vettel fought to be. Ricardo and Max fought to be number 1 in the team.
Yeah.
Kimi knew his place. The team knew his place. So
Kimi never
that
wanted to.
not a good comparison. He wasn't ending his career. He's
Yeah.
already champion.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
There is some. I don't know. I can't ever picture Seb as like this controversial guy who like.
Oh,
crashes
he
can't
was.
either.
Can I dive in?
Yeah, go for it. I mean, there's a lot of moments, and I'm not saying he never was. I'm just saying like the 2024 Marina could not see it.
Oh, and the 2024 Seb could not believe it.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm trying to say
He's like disappointed in his
that
younger
was one of the
self.
highlights was Turkey because that was so controversial in the
Yeah.
title fight. Literally same level of toxicity that 2018 Red Bull was. Actually way worse. I read Mark Webber's autobiography. Like
Yeah.
it got really bad. And then of course the highlight, because there's always back and forth, always. There was one race, I think it was 2012 in Silverstone. I didn't even have on the notes. 2012 Silverstone, right? They go into the championship. It's a very tight fight between all the drivers. I think it was 2012. It was Silverstone. And Red Bull were bringing new upgrades. And for some reason, even though Mark Webber qualified ahead, I think that was it. And they go into practice session. Both cars have new parts on them, right? Vettel crashes, ruins the front wing. Do you know what Red Bull does? They take the upgraded front wing from Webber's car, put it on Vettel's car, and give Webber the old spec front wing. So now Webber's really mad.
Well, I would be too. That's
And
like Logan Sargent.
I was gonna say that.
And he-
exactly. That's exactly Williams right there.
And he goes ahead and wins the race, and then radios as he wins, like, not bad for a number 2 driver, huh? So this is, I just say this
Holy.
because this is trying to paint the picture of how bad the Mark Webber-Sebastian Vettel relationship was. It was horrible.
Absolutely.
And then we get to Malaysia 2013. Mark Webber's on a different strategy. He's leading the race. Vettel's basically got the championship wrapped up like 2020 Lewis Hamilton style or 2023 Max Verstappen style, right? But Vettel's coming. The team say, hey, Vettel, multi-21, which means car number 2 finishes in front of car number 1. Car number 2 being Webber leading the race. Vettel being car number 1 in second place.
yep.
Like, hold position, do not fight. And Vettel, anyways, disregards this, just goes ahead, fights him on track. They fight for like a lap or two. Vettel overtakes him and wins the race. And on the podium, Mark Webber gets up, and in the cool-down room, he's like, Seb, multi-21, Seb. And Seb just could not care. He was asked about it after. Do you know what he said? The reporter's like, hey, we heard multi-21. You know, obviously the team wanted Mark to win the race. Why did you overtake him? And Seb looks the media dead in the eyes. Is like, hey, I was racing. I was faster. I won.
Yeah.
And he leaves the press conference like that. Like, this man was a menace, is what I'm trying to say. Like, just as bad as Max, if not worse.
That's just a racer wanting to win right
Literally.
there. That's all that is.
Oh, man, I love you saying that. Can you say that about Max?
No.
I don't think you can say that about Max.
Why?
Was
you just said Sebastian at that time was just as bad, if not worse, than Max now.
Well, I guess, Jason, you'd have to say this.
I mean, Max ignored the Perez penalty. I mean, a call. What was that, Brazil last year, where they wanted Perez to win the race?
Funny.
And
No,
Max did not
It
care.
wasn't
He's
the
like,
race.
I do not care.
He wasn't winning the race. It was like they were like fighting for it. It was the only race last year where they were actually kind of mid. Or was it last year? It was 2 years ago, whenever. They were actually mid. Like, they were not good. They were fighting for like 5th and 6th. But Checo was still in that like P2 fight, and everybody's like, well, if he loses the championship to Charles by 2 points, we know why, because Max would not let him finish ahead. It's never gonna happen. Like, Checo can be as bad, like he could be horrible. They'll never invert.
What made Vettel such a villain is he, like, his teammate was actually really close to beating him at all times.
Yeah.
Like, his teammate was actually really competitive. While Max, other than Daniel Ricciardo, never had that. Like, I think literally it was...
I would have loved to see Max and Seb like together instead of Danny.
Man.
It would have been a repeat of Mark Webber, Sebastian Vettel. If Ricciardo would have stayed in team, you would have the young driver, you know, Max or Seb, against the veteran Australian, Ricciardo or Webber.
Yeah.
And it was turning into that quickly, hence why he left, why Ricciardo left. I'm sure Mark Webber talked to him about it and said, you gotta leave.
You don't want this.
They don't like the old Australians.
Yeah. I mean, and again, the comparisons, they go on and on and on. Like, think about how many records of Seb's Max broke.
And Seb still holds some of them. He's still the youngest.
Still the youngest championship winner. He's not the youngest race winner anymore.
Yeah,
he's youngest pole sitter.
Yeah.
Youngest runner-up.
Max has all the youngest records for the bigger things, I think. Besides championship,
The bigger things.
Like, is Max not the youngest driver to ever get a Grand Slam?
Let me fact check
you. You would put that over a championship though?
I feel like CNN
Sorry,
fact
bigger things is the wrong thing. I just I think Max still has more. Let's put that. Max still has more youngest titles than Seb.
Probably.
Yeah. Seb has like 2 or 3.
I mean,
and the thing is, he's going to
start.
hold him. He did. He had a 2-year head start. He's going to hold those records because now a lot of them are like he was 17 in X days or 18 in X days.
Yeah.
And now you have to be 18.
Yeah.
So that would mean you'd have to be 18 in January, or not in January, February, when the season starts, like at the end of February.
Yeah.
To obtain your super license and race in Formula One.
It would just be like a day difference now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's crazy. And again, like Max most memorable moments, like 19 races won last year, right? Like 10 races in a row last year, biggest deficit to a championship win, and he still got it done like early in like Japan, with Seb in 2022. There's so many similarities there. It's crazy.
My only thing is, though, and just you don't have to attest to this, or maybe Marina, you know, or Tristan, of course, but was Seb ever a guy who made dirty moves?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the most recent, the worst thing was 2017 Baku. Is they're behind the safety car, and Hamilton is first, Vettel's in second. And they're in a title fight. Like, Vettel's leading the championship, 2017. Leading the championship. And they go into a corner, and the safety car slow down, and Hamilton lifts. And Vettel almost runs into the back of Hamilton, thinks he's got brake checked. And under the safety car, Vettel comes alongside Hamilton and drives into him. Oh. Like, they bump wheels.
Yeah.
And Vettel screamed on radio, he brake checked me. But under the safety car, he goes and intentionally rams into Hamilton, his championship rival. The funniest part, though, is he got a 10-second penalty for that, Sebastian Vettel. Lewis Hamilton, he was set to finish ahead of his championship rival. His headrest came loose, and he had to pull into for an extra pit stop. Had a super long pit stop to fix the headrest.
Man.
Vettel still finished ahead of him. Hamilton coming out of that was pissed.
Oh, I
because
can
he was
imagine.
like,
Sure.
what is this an example for the sport? All these kids are watching Vettel throw a tantrum, basically what he said. And then you have the offender finish ahead of me. 10 seconds was not enough, obviously. Like, that was that was Vettel's
you don't
like
punish
last.
the outcome. You punish
yeah.
the crime.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's
Yeah.
the
wild.
Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel
that was
menace to
Vettel's
society. to
last
F1's,
like heinous
argue.
act, I guess I could say,
Yeah.
before he really mellowed out and had his arc into being a great guy.
Nah,
I can't wait to see
I mean, he
Max
had his
become
kids
that
in
guy.
2019. Did that change anything? I don't know. Oh no, he got married in 2019.
He got married in 2019.
I think
I
That's when
think
it all
having your
changed.
own kids, that makes a bit of a difference. Because I think
Yeah.
like Max mellowed out a bit with Kelly and Penelope, but not enough. I feel like if Max had his own kid,
Yeah.
it might be a different story. But again, I don't know that that's gonna happen in F1 days. Like I really think that would happen when he's rating
Who
like
made that move?
rally or
that
something.
they were like, oh, I braked harder because the other guy has kids.
Oh, that was Fernando Alonso.
yeah.
That's why I
against Michael
thought.
Schumacher.
Yeah, he's like, I can do that because he's
No.
never gonna.
I think it was the quote was that he made a move outside of a turn or something
He
like
said,
that,
"I
really
could-
high speed
I
turn.
could brake
I knew
later."
I could get through there because I know he has wife and kids at home, so that's why I knew he'd brake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in Japan, Suzuka.
Which,
I
like,
think
tell me I'm wrong.
Not
Tell me
130
he's wrong, though. He's not wrong.
No, not at all.
I think
I mean, that's
So-
totally a Max thing to do too.
It would be
Yeah.
a Max thing to do, but Max has never had to fight someone with kids, so
There you
yeah,
go.
not
Lando Norris does not have
intensely at
kids.
least.
I think Seb's last heinous act is in combination with him and Fernando Alonso, showing how useless Lance Stroll is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sadly.
Fernando has finished ahead of Lance he's ahead this year. He was ahead last year in points. Seb beat Lance both years he was at
Yeah.
Aston. I thought they were supposed to be garnering the young talent, right? They're supposed to be
Yeah.
helping him, right?
I feel like-
well, Stroll at this point is a veteran. He's been in
Yeah,
since
That's
2017.
Literally,
crazy.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so crazy.
Well,
He has multiple
seasoned.
podiums. He has a pole position.
he
Like,
shouldn't be this bad.
Stroll is a veteran of the sport.
Absolutely.
Yep.
yeah.
I feel like this is a good segue into what I want to talk about lastly.
Mm.
And I have like I say a topic and a question.
Mm.
So when you leave the sport, you leave behind a legacy.
Indeed.
What is Sebastian Vettel's legacy? Because we know it's not this menace to the sport that he was in 2010, 2014. And with that said, what is Max Verstappen's legacy gonna be?
Well, so here's the thing. And I think with Sebastian Vettel, I'm going to do football references here because, of course. Well,
Patriots, man.
okay.
Is that what you were gonna say?
No, I wasn't going to mention the Patriots at
Oh,
all.
I thought you were gonna talk about
No.
Tom Brady.
No, actually, I was going to mention, I think Max Verstappen is like a Patrick Mahomes right now. I think.
Everybody hates him because he's the best.
Well, I think, I don't think Sebastian's level is on the same level as like a Tom Brady is. I think that would be the closest comparison that you have to that is Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
Right.
I think you'd put Sebastian Vettel with like Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
think.
I see it though. I don't know. I'm curious as to when you think of Sebastian Vettel, when you think of Max Verstappen,
Yeah.
his name is synonymous with Red Bull.
Yeah.
When you think of Lewis Hamilton, his name is synonymous with Mercedes.
Future
at
Ferrari
least for
world
now.
champion.
What is Sebastian Vettel's like link? Because it's not Aston. It has to be Red Bull or Ferrari. But he
It's
won
Red
4
Bull.
championships with Red Bull.
It is
Red
really,
Bull's
it
first
is really
championships
hard,
at that.
I
But
think.
a lot of people came into the sport knowing Seb as a Ferrari
I think it's an
driver.
era
Yeah.
thing, honestly.
I was
Like
gonna say,
the-
I think it depends. I think it's a
Yeah.
multifaceted deal.
When you look at the history books, it's going to be Red Bull. Nobody wants to remember him finishing second in 2017-18.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yeah.
as a fan that watched repeat seasons of him taking an early lead and then losing it in the end. Same
Yeah.
thing happened. Charles Leclerc took an early lead in 2022 and lost it in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to remember that.
Yeah.
I think if you were born, like if you're in the 20s when
You're going to say Sebastian Vettel's a Red Bull world champion. You're not going to
Yeah.
say all
Yeah.
his trophies are there.
Yeah.
You're not going to say he's a Ferrari legend. You're gonna say he's a Red Bull legend.
Do you think it makes more of a difference, at least now, and with like social media and with stuff, to have a driver that spends their entire career at one place and is a multi-champion with this one team and never goes anywhere else?
I don't think that's really a thing anymore. Like the NFL,
Max.
Yeah, but I still think he's gonna go somewhere at some point. The
NFL will be like Patrick Mahomes.
Well, no. I
don't
just
think he's
mean
going
like
anywhere else.
I don't think so either. I think he will. I think that we're done with the age that someone stays with a team for their entire career. I really do.
Who was the last driver to do that?
Stay with their entire career.
No
One
one
team.
big. Like none of the biggest names in Formula One.
Last world
their-
champion to stay with one team.
No one.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like, I literally
feel like
can't
that's
even think of, like-
impossible. I don't think
like-
it's real.
Yeah.
Jensen didn't. Mark didn't.
Hamilton was close.
Hamilton was close. He's going Ferrari.
Yeah.
Well,
Whoa,
whoa, whoa,
Hamilton
whoa,
wasn't
whoa,
even close because he
McLaren.
started with McLaren. Yeah.
But if he would have stayed with
Yeah.
McLaren, because there's a shock
but it
move
was
to Mercedes.
McLaren and then McLaren, Mercedes, and then Mercedes. So it's like, his legacy would have remained
Mercedes
pretty much
legend.
Mercedes legend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he was in before.
There is no one.
Yeah.
Ayrton was multi-teams. Schumacher was multi-teams. Like,
Yeah.
there is no major world champion in Formula One that didn't
Not even
hop
Tom
around.
Brady.
Yeah.
The only person you could think
No.
of is Eli Manning.
Jimmy Johnson,
Eli.
7 championships
Yeah.
for Hendrick
Yeah.
Motorsports.
Jimmy.
Could you
So-
even make the argument for that man? Because I don't think he was drafted by the Giants.
No, but he played.
Yeah.
He did not play. What is it? The Vikings drafted him.
No.
The
Well,
Colts, whoever it was.
I don't think it was the Giants, but I don't know who it was.
Yeah. Somebody else drafted him. He got traded on draft day.
Yeah.
Anyways, point being is, yes, like you said, I think legacy is going to be who you win with. And Vettel's going to be
Yeah.
remembered for winning with Red Bull, but his personality is going to be remembered for all the social causes he
Yeah.
fights for. And the nice person that he has graduated into
Yeah.
and evolved into.
Do you-
And I hope he gets more active in the sport again, but he's not
Do
really.
you think that part of the reason we remember Seb the way we do is because of the presence of social media now versus the presence of social media then?
Oh, yeah, it made it way easier for him to cement a legacy of all the different social stuff he does.
Yeah.
And also his Instagram account, when he announced his retirement, all he's posted on since is his history. If you go look at the Instagram right now, he has every single year in every single like monumental moment. It's actually really cool. It's like a
Yeah.
history book for Seb. Like if they would make it into a book, it would be beautiful.
Yeah.
And then they do social causes too, like remember Senna, remember this. But like everything on here, look, it's all Red Bull memories. He's a Red Bull history
Yeah.
or history.
So do you?
Yeah.
So I guess all in all, if he were to have a Tom Brady-esque retirement ceremony, he would say he is a Red Bull driver.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just say like you don't say Tom Brady's at, even though
Well, he
I
said.
hate this as a Ferrari fan, but even though Tom Brady won the championship with the Buccaneers, you're gonna remember Tom
Yeah.
Brady, the Patriots
Well,
Super Bowl.
the reason why I
So,
bring it up
bring
is
it back to F1. Even if, and this is a big even if Lewis wins a championship with Ferrari, he will always be the 7-time world
Absolutely.
champion at Mercedes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, now we can have 8-time world champion Lewis Hamilton and Ferrari driver.
Anyways, what was your point, Steven?
Well, no, I was just gonna say because the reason why I bring that up at all is
I
because
need the Ferrari merch.
Tom Brady literally said at his retirement ceremony with the Patriots, he said, "I am Tom Brady and I am a Patriot." And I
Yeah.
think Sebastian Vettel would do the
Lionel
same thing for Red
Messi,
I
the
think so.
Inter Miami superstar.
Bull. Oh my gosh, no.
No. But well, I don't even know
The
who they would say.
PSG
It'd just be Argentina.
Incredible guy.
They would just use their country, the Argentinian.
That's true.
But with that said, quote of the day. You just wait, sunshine.
Oh
That's
yeah,
Max
it was
and Seb.
No, it's not.
no. It was Vettel's engineer on his first world championship.
Right. I mean, Tristan was just listening to these
I was.
highlights.
That's why I didn't want to say anything. I was hoping one of these two dorks would
You
get
should
it.
have spoke up. You had the
should've said
inside
it.
scoop.
You had
I
the
mean,
inside
I knew it.
I knew
had
Jason
faith that
would know it.
Duvis,
We've been talking,
Waldmeister.
yeah, we've been talking to a living encyclopedia for an hour now. This dork bringing out the knowledge of where Danny Ricciardo first started his career. Like, what the hell is that?
Hispania racing
yeah,
team.
like what is
I love
that?
it.
the
It's
plan
not
for the
real.
all Spanish racing team.
HRT is mostly in junior series now.
Oh yeah, they were before. Just they
Yeah.
didn't have enough money for the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that said, thank you guys for watching. We'll be back as always every Monday at 11:30 Eastern time. But in the meantime, check out our socials, Instagram and TikTok at Lights Out Latest for Tech Tuesday, Wag Wednesday, Throwback Thursday, Fun Fact Friday, and the occasional Man on the Street. Bye guys.
Bye.
Peace.